Why not be moved just on top of that,
Now we're live. What
Okay.
do you mean? Why did I do the count? That's the point of the countdown. The countdown means we're not ready. You fucking dork.
Welcome back, Wolfpack. Dire Wolf and Captain Trevise here.
What do you-
So we're gonna be doing Biden's
State
State
of
of the
confusion.
but it's not really a State of the Union, right? They called it on multiple articles that it's a joint brief to the Congress, right?
I
Joint
don't
session
know. I think it's like a technicality because like the State of the Union is like I don't know. It's like very like specific technicality, and also I guess it's not so. Before it was weird that Biden hadn't addressed Congress. It wasn't necessarily that he hadn't given a State of the Union. It's pretty common that presidents don't give State of the Unions their first year, but it is common that they address Congress, even if it's not called the State of the Union. And so Biden neither did, because the State of the Union in the Constitution is a letter. It's been turned into a speech in the modern era, but it is constitutionally mandated to be at least a letter. So normally they would have presented the letter at some point during the year, but they also would have at least spoken to a joint session of Congress. Biden has done neither.
So my thought was the reason why they were calling a briefing before a joint session of Congress rather than calling it a State of the Union when they have had State of the Unions, in the first year of the term. It might be because they didn't actually do a letter with what he is going to say before he said it, which would make it so if he lost his place, he got befuddled, had misspeaks, they wouldn't be able to refer back to what he was supposed to have said and show that it was wrong.
Oh, Dyer. You don't need to work so hard for conspiracies on that. I'm sure we'll have plenty of Biden very visibly misspeaking tonight. I don't.
Wouldn't giving him a written speech that he has to follow that he probably will not?
Nah, because we had Trump went off script during his. I mean, yeah, you can always tell when Trump goes off script because he'll be. He's reading in like the very teleprompter Trump, like strong, good cadence, and they'll be like, "Yeah, man, like it's like really cool." Like he'll kind of like go off script. I know I just did Biden by accident, but Trump will like be very impressed with what he just read, and then he'll go back to it. But you can tell like when he's like reading something for the first time.
He'll usually repeat it several times. That's not usually built into a speech. Now, you pointed out earlier that Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi there are not social distancing, even though they both are vaccinated and masked up. I mean, they've been making a big point of at least doing the political theater of being COVID compliant.
Do you think Biden will wear a mask during the speech? Because he did make an executive order that, without exception, everyone wears masks on federal property. And I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I do believe that the federal Capitol building is federal property. I could be wrong, but
yes,
in theory, that would require him to wear a mask there, correct?
In theory. However, I'm sure the rules don't apply to him because, elitism. And yeah, he's going to not wear a mask. Even though he did wear a mask at the climate accord that was over Zoom. He was the only.
It was something about climate. It was over Zoom. I don't know.
Yeah, it was a international climate meeting with heads of state, and he was the only head of state that was wearing a mask while on a Zoom call.
Oh my God. What's wrong with Nancy? Is she falling on hard times? Her mask
What, is
does
she
not.
out of ice cream?
No, her mask does not perfectly match her outfit, which is like a first. She somehow has a custom mask for every single outfit. You know, one of the commoners like you and me. But not tonight. Not tonight.
Yeah, how elitist is it to have specially made, high brand name, in some cases, masks for every occasion?
I think
this is one of those.
when you got all that money from sitting on, when you've somehow made approximately 1,000% more money than you could have possibly made from your congressional salary over the last 50 years, you got to spend it on something.
Oh man, she's definitely invested in that military-industrial complex. That's she's getting all that money. Make sure we're perpetually at war. I do want to point out, there actually is a false story from the New York Times, I believe it was, or no, New York Post. It was about Kamala Harris's book. Since we're on the topic of some false stories, they had published a story saying that they were giving out Kamala Harris's book about how it was a kid's book about superheroes.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what the book was about, but they said that those were being given out to immigrants in care packages. It was actually a completely false story. The origin of it was one of her books was donated to a book drive for books for illegal immigrants.
No, but was it just like one? Because the story was that there was like, that's what they were saying, but the story was like that wasn't true. The story was that there was like thousands and thousands of these, and they were being like, nobody could track down where they had come from.
No, the original outlet that published the story retracted it.
Oh.
And the author of the article said that she was forced to run with a story that she didn't really agree with, but she did it anyways, and she resigned.
I thought it was, the buying a book or not buying a book and generating Kamala Harris, tens of hundreds of dollars in royalties. That's a may or may not be an interesting story, whether it was true or not. But while conservative media was covering that, you've got all the stuff with Hunter Biden still happening or not happening. You've got Rudy Giuliani just got raided by the FBI. You've got
and that's my
John
point, really.
Kerry. John Kerry actually committed treason, and I know people. We don't overuse that term here. I think every time we've used the term treason, it's always been accurate
by the definition.
But to this time, like, this is the most treasonous treason I think that we've ever cited on the show is John Kerry. I'm sure we'll be talking about that next week.
Absolutely.
But to the point where, unironically, I think that it was so bad it is punishable by being hanged by the neck until dead. I think that would be an appropriate punishment, and perhaps we should revive the old ways.
Maybe.
But what do you mean, baby? I mean, you're talking about. So John Kerry betrayed.
Fox, you've cut me off twice now. Let me finish the fucking
sentence. I'm angry. Let me be angry.
Yeah. So, and me saying maybe, I'm like considering worse punishments than death. While the conservatives were covering a non-story, they were not covering real stories like those. That was what brought.
Yes.
President Biden.
There is a letter. Looks like being passed up to Kamala.
Each one of them, which is by tradition. But as he prepares to speak, we look at this much sparser crowd.
Oh boy!
I have the high privilege
Here
and distinct honor to present the President of the United States.
I bet she won't tear this one up in a tantrum, huh?
Well, I don't see why she wouldn't.
First
She said
Lady
last
Jill
time that was a
Biden
very
there.
common
We
thing
saw
to
a
do.
moment
Like, it
ago
wasn't
the
weird at all.
second gentleman,
It didn't make her
husband
look
of
like a
Vice
psychopath.
President Kamala
Oh
Harris
no,
there.
he's fast off. He's within 6
Doug
feet.
Emhoff.
Is he?
Well, we will hear applause tonight.
Thank you.
Let's listen. Don't want to talk over the president. Let's listen.
Good to be back. Mitch and Chuck will understand, it's good to be almost home. Down the hall.
Mitch
Anyway,
and
thank
Chuckle?
you all, Madam Speaker,
Okay.
Madam Vice President. No president has ever said those words from this podium. No president has ever said those words. And it's about time.
He's part of the reason why. He was the last male vice president before the previous one.
First Lady,
He should have stepped down.
I'm her husband. Second Gentleman, Chief Justice, members of the United States Congress and the Cabinet, distinguished guests, my fellow Americans. While the setting tonight is familiar, this gathering is just a little bit different. A reminder of the extraordinary times we're in. Throughout our history, presidents have come to this chamber to speak to Congress, to the nation, and to the world, to declare war, to celebrate peace, to announce new plans and possibilities. Tonight, I come to talk about crisis and opportunity, about rebuilding the nation, revitalizing our democracy, and winning the future for America. I stand here tonight, one day shy of the 100th day of my administration. 100 days since I took the oath of office and lifted my hand off our family Bible and inherited a nation, we all did, that was in crisis. The worst pandemic in a century, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. Now, after just 100 days, I can report to the nation, America is on the move again.
Was it talking about January 6th as being an attack on our nation?
Yeah, I would still say
The 10 months of burning cities down was far more of an attack than the Jan
Peril into
6.
possibility,
definitely.
crisis to opportunity, setbacks into strength. We all know life can knock us down, but in America, we never, ever, ever stay down. Americans always get up. Today, that's what we're doing. America's rising anew.
What about
choosing
Pearl
hope over
Harbor?
fear?
If you get
Truth
knocked down
over
today, you
lies
get
and
back
light over
up and
darkness.
you level your rifle.
After 100 days of rescue and renewal, America is ready for a takeoff, in my view. We're working again, dreaming again, discovering again, and leading the world again. We have shown each other and the world.
Yes,
there's
dreaming
no
of wearing
quit
masks
in
while you're
America.
running outside
None.
and staying locked in your room for another
100
year.
days ago,
We could have
America's
already
house was
be
on fire.
working and free
we had to act.
if you guys
Well,
would just
Thanks
well,
to
no,
the
we are
extraordinary
though. The
leadership
funny,
of
like
Speaker
you know
Pelosi,
this. Like he's
Majority-
not talking to
Majority
us.
Leader
He's talking
Schumer,
to the cities.
and the overwhelming
He's talking to the
support of the
cities
American
under
people,
Democrat rule.
Democrats,
Yeah, like
Independents,
every-
and Republicans.
The rest of the
We did
country, we were
Together
done
we
with the
passed
pandemic 6
American
months
Rescue
ago.
Plan, one of the most consequential rescue
a
packages
self-imposed crisis,
in American history.
self-imposed pain and suffering.
We're already seeing the results.
The bounce
We're
back we've
already
had has
seeing
not
the
been
results.
thanks to you. It's been in spite of.
After I promised
Cocaine
we'd
bitch
get
got a
100
stash
million
stolen tonight.
COVID-19 vaccine shots into people's
Who
arms in
got you
100
those
days,
shots?
we will have provided over 220
you can't
million
provide.
COVID shots in those 100 days.
Trump.
Thanks to all the help of all of you. We're marshaling, with your help, everyone's help, we're marshaling every federal resource. We've gotten vaccines to nearly 40,000 pharmacies and over 700 community health centers where the poorest of the poor can be reached. We're setting up community vaccination sites, developing mobile units to get the
You don't get credit for what Trump.
Well, and I
gave
don't. I don't think. I think he's
Today,
lying. I don't think the federal government's
90%
setting those
of
up. I think that's being set up by the
Americans-
cities and the
within
states.
5
I don't
miles
think the
of a
federal government's
vaccination
setting that
site.
stuff up.
he
Everyone
provided the
over the age of
vaccines
16,
by following Trump's
everyone
plan.
is now
Right?
eligible
Yeah,
to get
he's done-
vaccinated.
Yeah,
Right
to
now,
the
right
extent that
away.
he provided anything,
Go
it might have
get
been
vaccinated, America.
our
Go
money.
and get the
But I think that was
They're
Trump who provided
available.
our money. I don't think Biden made that
he provided
decision.
it by not
Eligible
canceling
now.
Trump's workers.
Yeah. And then, like, the states came up with the plan. So, like, he didn't pay for it out of his
When I was
pocket,
sworn in
and
on
he didn't
January
plan
20th,
it. I
less
don't
than
know why he
1%
gets
of
credit
the
for
seniors in
it.
America are fully
No, he
vaccinated
gets
against
zero
COVID-19.
credit. In fact, he gets
100
negative credit
days
for
later,
criticizing things. You
70%
shouldn't take the vaccine
of
if
seniors
it comes
in
from
America
Trump.
over 65 are protected, fully protected. Deaths from COVID-19 are down 80% since January. Down 80% because of all of you. And more than half of all the adults
They
in
were
America
dropping by
got at least one
70%
shot.
January 20th.
A mass vaccination center in Glendale, Arizona. I asked the nurse, I said, "What's it like?" She looked at me and she said, "It's like every shot is giving a dose of hope," was her phrase, a dose of hope. A dose of hope for an educator in Florida
religious
was a
fanaticism
child
about
suffering
vaccine.
from an autoimmune disease. Wrote to me, said she's worried, and she was worried about bringing the virus home. She said she then got vaccinated at a large site in her car. She said she sat in her car when she got vaccinated and just cried. Cried out
No
of joy.
normal person has this kind of reaction
Cried
about
out
the
of
flu
relief.
vaccine.
Well,
Parents,
if you have a
the
kid with
smiles on the
autoimmune
kids'
disease,
faces for those
getting
who
the
are able to go
vaccine's
back
not
to
going to,
school.
based off of what the Biden
Because the
administration is
teacher,
saying,
the school bus
getting a
driver,
vaccine
the
will not
cafeteria
help.
has been
They've
vaccinated.
said that you still need to wear a mask after you've been
Grandparents.
vaccinated.
Hugging
If you have a
their
kid with an
children and
autoimmune
grandchildren
disease
instead of
and you're
pressing hands
following
against the window.
Biden administration guidelines,
say
getting
goodbye.
vaccinated is not going to help you. Your child's still going to get sick and die. Now, I don't believe that. And I don't think that's true, but that's what the
You know,
Biden
there's
administration's
still-
talking. That's what they're
you all know
saying in their
No better
policy.
than any group of Americans.
A child with an
There's
autoimmune
still
disease
more
has
work to
just as
do
much
to beat these
danger of
viruses.
dying from the flu.
We can't let our guard down.
And
But tonight, I can say, because of you, the American people, our progress these past 100 days against one of the worst pandemics in history has been one of the greatest logistical achievements this country's ever seen. What else have we done in those first 100 days? We kept our commitment, Democrats and Republicans, of sending $1,400 rescue checks to 85% of American households. We've
Actually, it was
already sent
2,000
more than
when we promised.
160 million checks out the door.
So you actually lied to
It's
us,
making a difference.
and you
don't
weighted
know
it.
when you go home.
You put a mean cyst on it,
For
so that was a
many
lie.
people, it's making all the difference in the world.
It's not nearly as much as
Texas
damage as you
roommate.
caused.
She said she couldn't work, but she said the relief check
Why
Put food
couldn't
on
she
the
work,
table
though, Joe?
and saved
That was
her
your
and her
party.
son.
That was your
The
party.
relief check doesn't make up for months of not working.
Her
That was
grandmother,
your party that told her that
Virginia,
the
who
point
told me
of being arrested.
she immediately
And you
took
did
her
arrest
granddaughter
people
to the
for
eye
it, for
doctor.
trying to go to work.
Something
When
she
you
said
stab
she put
someone
off
and
for
then put a
months because
band-aid
she
over
didn't
it,
have the
you're
money.
not the good guy.
One
I'd
of
like
the
to see a
defining
quote from the
images, at least
the
from my perspective,
hairdresser
of this crisis
that
has been
Nancy tried to
cars
destroy.
lined up. Cars
Biden's not going
lined
to
up
quote
for
what she thinks about her
miles.
job.
And not people just barely ever start those cars, nice cars. Lined up for miles, waiting for a box of food to be put in their trunk.
This is
I don't
a
know about you,
situation
but I didn't
you
ever think I'd
designed
see
and
that
created,
in
the
America.
Democrats.
And all of this is through no fault of their own.
Yeah, it's your fault. They have our sympathy,
No
but you
fault
have our
of their
iron.
own. These people are in this position. That's why the rescue plan is delivering food and nutrition assistance to millions of Americans facing hunger. And hunger's down sharply already. We're also providing rental assistance. You all know this, but the American people, I want to make sure they understand. Keeping people from being evicted from their homes. Providing loans to small businesses that reopen and keep their employees on the job. During these 100
Yes,
days,
tell us more about what you've done for
an
small
additional
businesses, Joe.
800,000 Americans enrolled in the
Yeah,
Affordable
like
Care
shutting
Act.
down
When I established a
hundreds of
special
thousands.
sign-up,
Burn
to
them
do that.
down. Literally burning
800,000
them to
in that period.
ashes.
70% of them that were destroyed in the
We're
riots
making
are
one
not
of the
coming back.
largest one-time ever investments, ever, and improving health care for
Biggest
veterans.
loss of generational wealth to the
Critical
black community in a
investments to
long
address the
time.
opioid crisis. And maybe most importantly, thanks to the American Rescue Plan, we're on track to cut child poverty in America in half this year.
How much was caused last year by Democrats?
Like, relative to what year are they talking about cutting it by half? Like, is Biden coming in for like the last 1%?
And in the process,
Like, what?
while this was all going on, the economy created more than 1,300,000 new jobs in 100 days. More
Mostly in
jobs
states that reopened without against your approval. I don't understand.
More jobs in the
When you
first
wanted
100
those
days
jobs not to
than
come.
any president on record. The International Monetary Fund
It's incredible that he's taking
International
credit for jobs when the
Monetary
Democrat
Fund
policy and the
is
mainstream
now
estimating
media
estimating our
of
economy
people
will grow at a rate
have
of more
been
than
talking about how we should be
6%.
putting people in jail for
That'll be
opening
the fastest
businesses.
pace of economic growth
Yeah,
in this
you
country
don't get
in
credit for the
more than 4
businesses opening in other states that
America's
you,
moving.
against your approval,
You have-
them making
forward.
jobs.
You have several Democrat
can't
administrations
stop
in
now.
states and cities all across
We're in
America that are
competition with China
working
and
around
other
the clock to
countries
prosecute business
to win
owners.
the 21st century.
Yeah, literally jailing
We're at a
people
great inflection
for
point.
opening their businesses and creating jobs.
Yeah.
We have to do more than just build back better. We have to build back better. We have to compete.
We have to do more than
Trust me,
build back better.
strenuously that
We
we
have
can.
to
What you're
build back
building
better.
It's not better.
Throughout our history,
Did you hear what he said?
if you think about it,
Yes.
public investment in infrastructure,
Dyer, we have to
literally
do more than
transformed
street
America.
better. We have to street
our attitudes
better.
as well as our opportunities. The Transcontinental Railroad, the interstate highways, united 2 oceans and brought a totally new age of progress to the United States of America.
You haven't brought any
Universal
progress
public
on-
schools and college aid opened
You're
wide
talking
the
about
doors of
reparations.
opportunity. Scientific breakthroughs took us to the moon. Now we're on Mars, discovering vaccines, gave us the internet, and so
Are we
much
on
more.
Mars?
We're discovering vaccines.
These are
on
investments we
Mars.
made together as one country, and investments that only the government was in a position to make.
Must have missed the first manned flight to
Time and
Mars.
again, they propel us into the
Yeah,
future.
Trevor, I was thinking the same thing.
That's why I proposed the American
Who built the
Jobs Plan.
transcontinental railroads,
A
Joe? Who built
once-in-a-generation
them?
investment in America itself. This is the largest jobs plan since World War II. Creates
would not use
jobs
that.
to upgrade our transportation infrastructure. Jobs, modernizing our roads, bridges, highways.
How do you use the
Jobs
money we give
building
you?
ports and
in our
airports,
tax-
rail corridors, transit lines. It's
Still
clean
stealing from
water. And today, up to 10 million homes in America and more than 400,000 schools and child care centers have pipes with lead in them, including drinking water. A clear and present danger to our children's health.
Not true. The
American Jobs Plan
that's-
creates
that's
jobs
not how
replacing
lead pipes work.
100%
I don't have time to
of the
explain
nation's
tonight,
lead
but
pipes and service lines. So every
look
American
up what happens with lead
can
pipes.
drink
They're not
clean
as dangerous
water.
as you think. The only reason why they were a danger in Flint, Michigan, is because they ran untreated water
and the
through them that
process will
broke loose all
create
the lead.
thousands and thousands of good-paying jobs.
It's just not the science, Joe.
It creates jobs connecting every American with high-speed internet, including 35% of the rural America that still doesn't have it. This is going to help our kids and our businesses succeed in the 21st century economy. And I'm asking the Vice President to lead this effort, if she would.
Oh, like she's leading the
Because I
border.
know-
Yeah, I
done.
think she's got her hands full there.
Yeah, she hasn't
Creates
solved the
jobs,
first
building a
problem.
modern power grid.
Shouldn't
Or even-
why is he so
Our grids
focused
are
on
vulnerable to storms, hacks. Catastrophic
rural
failure.
areas and the internet? Shouldn't he be focused on the inner
tragic
city
results.
blacks that he thinks don't
as
know
we
how to
saw
use the
in
internet?
Texas and elsewhere during the winter storm.
Yeah.
Apparently, he doesn't care.
The American Jobs Plan will create jobs that lay thousands of miles of transmission lines needed to build a resilient and fully clean grid. We can do that. Look,
We absolutely do need to modernize the grid, but I
American
don't
Jobs
think that
Plan
letting green
will help millions
energy
of people
make those
get back to
decisions
their
is going to
jobs
work out. Let's just
and
look at
back to their
Texas,
careers.
circa
Yeah.
3 months
2
ago.
million women
Yeah, how about we get some
have
nuclear
dropped out of the workforce
truly
during this pandemic. 2
It
million.
doesn't fluctuate.
And too often because they couldn't get the care they needed to care for their child or care for an elderly parent who needs help. 800,000 families are on the Medicare waiting list right now to get home care for their aging parent or loved one with disability. If you think it's not important, check out in your own district.
That's incredible
Democrat or
because
Republican?
the people that are aging out to that point
Democrat
right
or
now,
Republican
when they
voters?
were our age, Dyer, they were being promised
great
that Social
concern,
Security would
almost as
take
much
care
as
of
the
them at
children
this
is
age.
taking care
Their
elderly
kids who are
loved
trying to take care of them
who can't
now
be left
were
alone.
promised 10 years ago by Joe Biden
Medicaid
and his partner in
contemplated,
crime
but this
that
plan's gonna
Obamacare
help
is going to
those
take care of
families
them. And
and create jobs
here they
for
are,
caregivers
just a whole lifetime of
better
promises
wages
from
and
the
better
Democrats.
benefits.
And
Continue
Joe Biden's like,
successful
but
growth.
now is the time.
too
I'm going to
long,
act.
we
I actually
failed
going to
to
follow
use the
through with
most
my promise
important
finally.
when it comes
Yeah.
to meeting the climate
The first two
crisis.
promises just ended up being
Jobs.
huge money sinks and didn't actually provide what they're supposed to provide.
Jobs.
So why do we believe this time?
For me, when I think climate change, I think jobs. The American Jobs Plan will put engineers and construction workers to work building more energy efficient buildings and homes. Electrical workers, IBEW members installing 500,000 charging stations along our highways so we can own the electric car market. Farmers planting cover crops so they can reduce the carbon dioxide in the air and get paid for doing it.
You just move to other countries and
Look.
lithium mines.
Well, what he's talking there with cover crops is he's talking about
about
paying
it.
farmers
There is
to
simply no reason why
waste
the
their
blades for
land,
wind
waste their
turbines can't be
resources,
built in Pittsburgh instead of
and
Beijing. No
And move the,
reason.
he's-
pollution he's talking about just to
None.
other countries.
yeah. But I
Still
mean,
on
he
the
was,
same
just,
planet.
he was just talking about hunger problems, and then he immediately his next topic is
folks.
about how do we waste arable land.
There's no reason why American workers can't lead the world in the production of electric
There is a
vehicles and
reason.
batteries.
It's you and the
Well,
Democrats.
there is no reason. You have the
There
capacity.
is one. You're the barrier.
You're the brightest, best trained people in the world. The American Jobs Plan is going to create millions of good-paying jobs. Jobs Americans can
Who's
raise
building
a
the
family.
batteries, Joe? Not
As
you.
my
It's going to
dad
be
would
Elon
then say,
Musk.
with a little breathing room. And all the investments in the American Job Plan will be guided by one principle: buy
Racism.
American. Buy American.
Actually, your plan said you're going to give jobs
And I might note
towards
parenthetically,
underserved minorities. So it sounds like a
that does not
racism.
violate any trade agreement. It's been the law since the 30s. Buy American. American tax dollars are going to be used to buy American products made in America to create American jobs. That's the
America
way
first?
it's supposed to be, and it will be in this administration.
I thought America First was evil. In fact, I know Trump was.
That sounds like trying to plug your circuit
And I made
breaker
it
into
clear to
itself. You're
all
going to use
my
American
cabinet
tax
people,
dollars
their
to
ability to
drive
give
enough economic
exemptions
activity for American
has been
jobs that those
strenuously
workers will
limited.
then be paying back
Will be
into the tax
American
system
products.
that will then be
Now, I
sustaining
know-
their jobs.
Some of you at home are wondering whether these jobs are for you. So many.
I'm not. I learned to code.
So many of the folks I grew up with feel left behind, forgotten. And an
No one
economy
in your
so
circle is left
rapidly
behind.
changing. It's
Don't
frightening.
bullshit us.
I want to speak directly to you because you think about it. That's what people are most worried about. Can I fit in? Independent experts estimate the American Jobs Plan will add millions of jobs and trillions of dollars to economic growth in the years to
Those
come.
aren't numbers.
It is a 8-year program.
It's going to have billions. Well, how
These are
many
good-paying
billions,
jobs
Joe?
that
How
can't be
many
outsourced.
trillions?
Nearly 90% of the infrastructure jobs
You're just
created
spitting
in
out
the American
large
Jobs Plan
sounding numbers.
do not require a college degree. 75% don't require an associate's degree.
Then why are we subsidizing college,
the American
Joe?
Jobs Plan is a blue-collar
Yes.
blueprint
Stop
to
subsidizing
build
federal
America.
loans.
That's what it is.
I always spend so
Stop.
much money on degrees. They don't actually give people marketable skills. Why are we pumping the colleges that are sending people to fail and not be producers?
In this chamber and the other. Good guys and women on Wall Street, but Wall Street didn't build this country. The middle class built the country, and unions built the middle class.
You have to put the next.
So that's why I'm calling on Congress.
I love when Democrats say that there's like they have like a formula where it's like so and so didn't build this. This other group built this, and they'll switch out who the so and so and who the next group is a lot, but they always think that they're very profound when they say it. Joe just thought he was very impressed with himself when he said it right there. You'll remember Obama did the same thing with you didn't build that, we all built that, the government built that, and then now Joe Biden's saying the other thing.
Taxes on the middle class, by the way, by a lot.
Oh yeah.
No one working 40 hours a week should live below the poverty line. We need to ensure
they don't if they live in a regular American town, not in the city.
Paycheck Fairness Act to my desk as well. Equal pay. It's been much too long. And if you wonder whether it's too long, look behind me. And finally, American Jobs Plan will be the biggest increase in non-defense research and development on record. We'll see more technological change. And some of you know more about this than I do. We'll see more technological change in the next 10 years than we saw in the last 50. That's how rapidly artificial intelligence and so much more is changing. And we're falling behind the competition with the rest of the world. Decades ago, we used to invest 2% of our gross domestic product in America, 2% of our gross domestic product in research and development. Today, Mr. Secretary, that's less than 1%. China
this
and
is
other
a
countries
true
are
statement. We
closing
do
in
need to
fast.
invest in this, but I feel like he's going to squander it.
We have to develop
Well,
and dominate the
why is it like
products and
that?
technologies of the future.
Who do we know
Advanced
that was in
patterns.
Congress for the last 50 years
Biotechnology.
ensuring that it was
Computer
like
chips.
that?
Clean
Every
energy.
time when Biden and his
The
cronies
Secretary of
invest
Defense
in
can tell
development
you,
of something
and those
like
you on work in national
Solyndra,
security
they
issues now,
actually are just pour money into their
Defense
friends' bank
Department
accounts
has an
and don't
agency
actually
called
develop
DARPA.
of anything of value. Everything
The
developed of
Defense
value is done
Advanced
usually by the
Research
private
Project
sector
Agency.
now.
The people who set up before I came here, and that's been a long time ago, to develop breakthroughs that enhance our national security. That's their only job. And it's a semi-separate agency. It's under the Defense Department. It's led to everything from the discovery of the internet to GPS and so much more that's enhanced our security.
We
The National
created
Institute
the
of Health,
internet, not
NIH,
discovered it.
I believe,
It
should
was just in
create
the wild they came
a
across
similar
it.
Yes.
advanced research projects agency for health. And here's what it would do. It would have a singular purpose: to develop breakthroughs to prevent, detect, and treat diseases like Alzheimer's, diabetes, and cancer.
I thought Joe already had the cure to cancer.
A cancer proposal in the last year as vice president. Almost $9 million going to NIH. And if you excuse the point of personal privilege, I'll never forget you standing, Mitch, and saying, "Name it after my deceased son." It meant a lot. But so many of us have deceased sons, daughters, and relatives who died of cancer. I can think of no more worthy investment. I know of nothing that is more bipartisan. So let's end cancer as we know it. It's
I would
within
love
our
nothing
power.
more than to cure the Democrat
It's within
Party.
our power to do it.
Money into an issue and expect it to be solved. I'm sorry.
What was that?
You can't just pour money into a problem and expect it just to be solved.
Talking about have often had bipartisan support in the past. Vice President Harris and I met regularly in the Oval Office with Democrats and Republicans and discussed the jobs plan. And I applaud a group of Republican senators who just put forward their own proposal. So let's get to work. I wanted to lay out before the Congress my plan before we got into the deep discussions. I'd like to meet with those who have ideas that are different, they think are better. I welcome those ideas. But the rest of the world is not waiting for us. I just want to be clear. From my perspective, doing nothing is not an option.
I don't know. His campaign all summer seemed to imply that it was.
Yeah.
We can't be so busy competing with one another that we forget the competition that we have with the rest of the world to win the 21st century. Secretary Blinken can tell you I spent a lot of time with President Xi. Traveled over 17,000 miles with him. Spent, they tell me, over 24 hours in private discussions with him. And he called to congratulate him. We had a 2-hour discussion. He's deadly earnest about becoming the most significant, consequential nation in the world. He and others, autocrats, think that democracy can't compete in the 21st century with autocracies because it takes too long to get consensus. To win that competition for the future, in my view, we also need to make a once-in-a-generation investment in our families and our children. That's why I've introduced the American Families Plan tonight, which addresses 4 of the biggest challenges facing American families and in turn America. First is access to good education. When this nation made 12 years of public education universal in the last century,
Don't tell me you think public education is
made
good
us
education.
the best educated, best prepared nation in the world. It's, I believe, the overwhelming reason that propelled us to where we got in the 20th century. But the world
California spends a lot of money
catching
on
up.
public schools, and they suck.
They're not waiting. I would say parenthetically, if we were sitting down, we set a bipartisan committee together and said, okay,
It's funny, like,
we're gonna
is that on his
decide
word
what
today
we do in
calendar
terms
today?
of
Parenthetically, he said
government
that 3
providing for
times.
free education. I wonder whether we'd think, as we did in the 20th century, that 12 years is enough in the 21st century.
I thought we were only dead in
doubt
12
it.
years.
12 years is no longer enough today to compete with the rest of the world in the 21st century.
Wow, he is
That's why
slowed
my American
way
Families Plan
down.
guarantees 4 additional years.
He came out of the
public
gate
education for every
really,
person in
really
America.
heavy and bold and like
Starting as early
strong.
as we can.
And now his voice slowed down. It's
Great
very
universities in
low, a
this
lot more
country have
raspy,
conducted studies
almost
over
a hint of
the last
slurring on
10
the
years.
words.
It shows that adding 2
whatever
years
he
of
drank
universal
before this.
high-quality preschool
It's wearing
for
off.
every
Wear it off
3-year-old
quick.
and 4-year-old, no matter what background they come from, puts them in a position to be able to compete all the way through 12 years and increases exponentially their prospect of graduating and going on beyond graduation. The research shows when a young
Again,
child
contradicting
goes
himself
to
within
school,
the
not
speech. He
date
started this off with, we got all
far
these
more
jobs that
likely
don't
to
require a
graduate from
college
high school
degree, all these trade jobs,
to
we're gonna good
college.
jobs, union jobs,
Something after
and then now he's talking about how we really need to
When you
be
add 2
having
years of free
people
community college on
be
top of
carried
that,
through 16,
change
18,
the
20 years of
dynamic.
schooling. It doesn't add up.
Yeah.
And we'll increase Pell Grants and invest in historical black
Oh
colleges
my
and
God,
universities,
Pell Grants.
tribal colleges, minority-serving
Great.
institutions. The reason is they don't have the endowments.
If you want to help minority communities,
But
stop
their students are
putting them
just
through
as
terrible
capable of
college.
learning about cybersecurity.
Not
just
only
as
don't teach them a
capable of
skill,
learning
but
about
also
metallurgy,
give them ideas that
all the things that are
barbarians
going on that provide those jobs of the future.
He's acting like because
Jill's a community
which I don't
college
even believe
professor.
that I don't believe the stat that
teaches today
historically
as
black
First
colleges have
Lady.
less endowments than other
She's long
colleges,
said,
or at least proportionally. But he's acting like, well, if you don't put investment in
She's
historically black colleges, then black people won't get a good education. They're allowed at all the other universities at like extreme preference, and they get paid for it.
I don't know of any grant that it goes to only white men.
I've heard
you
it
know what I mean?
once, I've heard it 1,000
No.
times. Joe, Any country that out-educates us is going to outcompete us. She'll be deeply involved in leading this effort. Thank you, Jill.
We should worry about the quality of
Second
education,
thing
not the quantity.
we need. American Families Plan will provide access to quality, affordable child care. We guarantee
Chief Flying
we're not
Dog.
proposing in legislation, we guarantee that low and middle income families will pay no more than 7% of their income for high quality care for children up to the age of 5. The most hard pressed working families won't have to spend a dime. Third,
I wonder if that covers
the American
abortion.
Families Plan will finally
I
provide
really do, though. I really
12
do,
weeks of
though.
paid leave and medical leave, family
They're
medical.
fun. I mean, they are going to
We're one
fund
of
it.
the few
Abortion is
industrial
health care. That's
countries
what
in
they've
the
been
world.
saying.
They're just talking about child care.
No one should have to choose between
Abortion
a
is
job
infrastructure, Dyer.
and a paycheck
Everything
for
is.
taking care of themselves and their loved ones or parent or spouse or child. And fourth, the American Family Plan puts directly into the pockets of millions of Americans.
Oh, I wasn't counting. Did he screw up
In
how many he
March,
said he was going to count to?
We expanded tax credit for every child
counting
in a family, up to $3,000 per child if they're under 6 years of age. Over 6 years of age, and $3,600 for children over 6 years of age. With 2 parents, 2 kids, that's $7,200.
Oh
in
my
pocket
God.
to help take care of your family.
Come on, it's
And
not your
that
head.
will
Yeah,
help
that
more
makes
than
sense.
65 million children and help cut child care poverty in half. And we can afford it. So we did that in the last piece of legislation we passed. But let's extend that child care tax credit at least through the end of 2025.
Baby kids younger than 6.
The American Rescue Plan lowered health care premiums for 9 million Americans who buy their coverage under the Affordable Care Act. I know that's really popular this side of the aisle. But let's make that provision permanent so their premiums don't go back up.
Yeah, they won't be able to afford those premiums. All their taxes and gas and milk and eggs, that's all going up too fast. So
In addition to my family's
Gotta cut back
plan,
somewhere.
I'm going to work with Congress to address this year other critical priorities for American families. The Affordable Care Act has been a lifeline for millions of Americans, protecting people with pre-existing conditions, protecting women's health,
It knocked a lot of people off
and
of
the
their
pandemic
plans
has
into
demonstrated how
Medicare,
badly,
actually. It was not a
it's
lifeline.
needed. Let's lower deductibles for working families on the Affordable Care Act. And let's lower prescription drug costs. We know how to do this. The last president had that as an objective. We all know how outrageously expensive drugs are in America. In fact, we pay the highest prescription drug prices.
who was he was
Anywhere
president and
in the
vice
world,
president
right
when
here in America.
insulin prices went up by
Nearly
like
3 times.
50,000%, and that's
Same
not
job,
being
nearly 3
exaggeration.
times.
Insulin prices went
it's
up.
real.
Yeah, insulin prices
Yeah.
went up from like
We have to change
a
that,
couple
and
of
we can't.
dollars up to hundreds
we
of
talked
dollars
about for all
per.
the years
So
I
did
was down
EpiPens.
in this boat.
Who did that happen under?
Obama.
Oh,
Medicare, the power to
no.
save hundreds of billions
Yeah,
out
and
by
then Trump is the one who did the
negotiating lower
executive
drug
order
prescription prices.
limiting the cost of drugs. So
Yeah,
it's based off of the
By the
amount
way,
cost to produce.
It won't just help people on Medicare. Lower prescription drug costs for everyone. And the money we save, which is billions of dollars, can go to strengthen the Affordable Care Act and expand Medicare coverage benefits without costing taxpayers an additional penny. It's within our power to do it. Let's do it
You're
now.
already talking about raising taxes. So yes, there will be more than a penny in taxes. You're talking about a huge tax increase.
We've talked about it long enough. Democrats and Republicans, let's get it done this year. This is all about a simple premise. Health care should be a right, not a privilege in America. So, how do we pay for my jobs and family plan? I made it clear we can do it without increasing the deficits. Let's start with what I will not do. I will not impose any tax increase on people making less than $400,000. But it's time for corporate America and the wealthiest 1% of Americans to just begin to pay their fair share.
When you
Just their
tax
fair
someone,
share.
a small business owner with an income of $400,000, you make it so they can't produce as many jobs. So you are hurting the job market that you're trying to
Sometimes
grow.
I have arguments with my friends in the Democratic
All
Party.
you gotta do is start
I think
eliminating
you
the
should be able to become a
loopholes.
billionaire and a millionaire.
You don't need to raise them anymore. Just start eliminating loopholes that let
Recent study
corporations
shows
get away with
that
offshoring their
55
assets.
And who
not
made
paying
those
taxes.
loopholes, by the way?
Joe
Who
Biden
made
did,
those?
actually.
Paid.
That's
Oh,
good.
yeah. It's funny how they complain about a problem they create.
Those
Yeah.
55 corporations made in excess of $40 billion in profit. A lot of companies also evade taxes through tax havens in Switzerland and Bermuda and the Cayman Islands.
You let them.
And they
enable
benefit
it.
from tax loopholes and deductions,
You made the
for
rules.
offshoring jobs and shifting profits overseas. It's not right. We're going to reform
No,
corporate
you do
taxes
that.
so
Biden
they pay
does
their
that
fair
too.
share and help pay for the public investments their businesses will benefit from as well.
He's got accounts in China and other countries where his money's being stored to avoid taxes. Are you kidding me?
We're going to reward work, not just wealth. We take the top tax bracket for the wealthiest 1% of Americans, those making over $400,000 or more, back up to where it was when George W. Bush was president, when he started, 39.6%. That's where it was when George W. was president. We're going to get rid of the loopholes, allow Americans to make more than $1 million a year and pay a lower tax rate on their capital gains than Americans who receive a paycheck.
That's not an income like for a
Yeah,
job.
he's just wrong with that. I don't care. There's just
And the IRS is
so
gonna
much
crack
going
down
on.
on
Just
millionaires
as a
and billionaires
movement,
who
conservatives
cheat on their
really got to stop worrying about the millionaires.
estimated
The millionaires will be
billions
okay.
of dollars
There's
by
so
think
much
tanks that
attacks
lift
on
rates.
the middle class and
looking to
conservatives
punish anybody.
and people like us. We
But I will
have
not
wasted
add
a
a tax burden,
tremendous amount of
additional
effort
tax
as
burden
a
to the middle
as a
class in this
movement on
They're already
defending
paying enough.
millionaires.
Yeah, but
the last
limiting
10
I
years.
believe what I propose is
raising
fair.
capital gains tax isn't just for millionaires.
Fiscally
It's a
responsible.
conservation of tax that other people like you and I
And
can
it
also have.
raises revenue to pay for the plans I
That's the
propose
problem.
and will create millions of jobs that will grow the economy and enhance our financial standing in the country. When you hear someone say they don't want to raise taxes on the wealthiest 1% or corporate America, ask them, whose taxes you want to raise? Instead, who's they're going to cut?
When you raise capital gains taxes,
Look,
you're raising it on
the big tax
everybody,
cut
and
of
capital
2017.
gains taxes are lower than regular taxes to
Remember, it was
to
supposed
encourage
to
you
pay
to
for
invest.
itself. That was how it was sold. And generate vast economic growth. Instead, it added $2 trillion to the deficit. It was a huge windfall for corporate America and those at the very top.
It's pretty incredible because
Instead of using the tax savings to
between
raise wages and
the
invest
current
in
spending
research
bills that
and
have already been
development,
passed
it
and the
poured
spending bills that are being
billions of dollars
proposed,
into the pocket of
Biden's on
CEOs.
track to spend $10 trillion
In fact, the pay
his
gap between
first year,
CEOs and their
which
workers
is
now among
the
largest
most
in history.
like.
According to
It sounds
one
like a lot,
study,
right?
CEOs
But like
make
it's just
320
impossible to grasp
times
how much more that
the
is
average worker in the
than
corporation
ever
rate.
before.
Used to be in the low
Yeah,
hundreds.
That is,
it's
I mean,
The pandemic
that
has
is
only made
just
things worse.
completely off
it's
track.
half of the
20 million
deficit that
Americans
every
lost
single
their job
president
in the
before him
pandemic.
helped build up. Before he got
We're
elected.
going to be
working
at
middle
40
class
trillion
America.
deficit by the time he
At
gets
the
out of
same
office.
time,
And the problem is, it's all
Roughly
predicated on a
650
crisis they
billionaires in
created
America
that required them to spend that
saw
money.
their net worth increase by more than $1 trillion in the same exact period. Let me say it again. 650 people increased their wealth by more than $1 trillion during this pandemic.
Why?
You allowed,
And they're now worth
you allowed them to.
You destroyed small businesses with your economic policies. Democrat cities did. And the businesses had the audacity to survive that. They sent out the goon squad. They sent out the Joe Biden Democrat goon squad to burn them down.
So, like, Amazon did well because you made them the only game in town.
Yeah.
You can't blame Amazon for that.
You know,
You created the situation.
there's a broad consensus of economists left, right, and center, and they agree what I'm proposing will help create millions of jobs and generate historic economic growth. These are among the highest values investments we can make as a nation. I've often said our greatest strength is the power of our example, not just the example of our power. In my conversations with world leaders, and I've spoken to over 38, 40 of them now, I've made it known that America's back. And you know what they say? The comment I hear most of all from them is they say, we see America's back, but for how long? But for how long? My fellow Americans, we have to show not just that we're back, but that we're back to stay. And that we aren't going to go it alone.
Are we going to do that by constantly sacrificing our interests to other nations?
Yes.
No one nation can deal with all the crises of our time, from terrorism to nuclear proliferation, mass migration, cybersecurity, climate change, as well as...
I bet it'd be a little bit easier without your
we're
Secretary of
experiencing now,
State giving up classified secrets
no
to our
wall high
enemies and
enough
at the expense of our allies.
keep any virus.
Yeah, it'll help if we didn't prosecute our soldiers
And
for
our
fighting
own
wars
vaccine
you put us
supply, as
into.
it grows to meet our needs, and we're meeting them, will become an arsenal for vaccines for other countries, just as America was an arsenal for democracy for the world, and in consequence influence the world. But every American will have access before that occurs. Every American will have access to be fully covered by COVID-19 from the vaccines we have. Look, the climate crisis is not our fight alone, it's a global fight. The United States accounts, as all of you know, less than 15% of
Ted Cruz is a
carbon
cuck, by the way. I'm
rest of the
obliged every
world
show
accounts
now
for
to explain why
85%.
Ted Cruz is a cuck. But tonight he's a
That's why I
cuck because
kept
he's
my
wearing a
commitment to
mask
rejoin
after
the
he made
Paris
such a
Accord,
big
because if we do
deal
everything
that now if he had never made a big deal that he wasn't going to wear a mask again,
not gonna only matter.
I wouldn't care. But he made such a
kept my
big
commitment
deal,
to convene
and he got
climate
so much
summit right here
publicity
in
out of it. And
America.
he went and did a show
Of all
tour
the
with
major
with
economies in
Crowder
the
and
world,
Daily Wire
China,
and Tucker,
Russia,
talked
India,
about how
European
he wasn't going to wear a mask
I said
anymore.
I'd do it in my first 100
Next time we
days.
set the camera on him, he's wearing a
I
mask
wanna be
tonight.
very
So
blunt.
I noticed that.
I just
Yeah.
want to point out that Ted Cruz is a cuck.
I had my attempt was to make sure that the world could see there was a consensus, that we are at an inflection point in history. The consensus is if we act to save the planet, we can create millions of jobs and economic growth and opportunity to raise the standard of living of almost everyone around the world.
Most of your
If you watched
policies
any of it and
for
you were all
for
busy,
climate
I'm sure you
change
didn't have
destroy jobs and weaken us as a
That's what
country.
virtually every nation
Don't
said,
bullshit
even the
me.
ones that aren't doing their fair share. The investments I propose tonight also advance the foreign policy, in my view, that benefits the middle class. That means making sure every nation plays by the same rules in the global economy, including China. In my discussion with President Xi, I told him, we welcome the competition,
They don't
not looking for
respect you
conflict.
or our country.
but I made absolutely clear that we will defend America's interest across the board. America will stand up to unfair trade practices that undercut American workers and American
But you
industries, like subsidies from state to state-owned operations and enterprises, and the theft of American technology and intellectual property. I also told President Xi that we'll maintain a strong military presence in the Indo-Pacific, just as we do with NATO and Europe, not to start a conflict, but to prevent one.
I don't believe.
Put your ships where your mouth is, there, buddy.
Yeah, they are made clear they don't respect you and they don't care what you say, and they will constantly,
told them what
you know,
I've said to
fly
many
over
world
international
that
or
America
violate
will
different
not
countries'
back
space.
away from our commitments, our commitment to human rights and fundamental freedoms, and to our alliances. And I pointed out to him No responsible American president could remain silent when basic human rights are being so blatantly violated. An American president
prosecuting people
has
for
to
their
represent
speech.
the essence of what our country stands for.
Political beliefs.
America is an idea, the most unique idea in history. We are created, all of us, equal. It's who we are. And we cannot walk away from that principle and, in fact, say we're dealing with the American idea. With regard to Russia, I know it concerns some of you, but I made very clear to Putin that we're not going to seek escalation, but their actions will have consequences. They turn out to be true, and they turned out to be true. So I responded directly and proportionally to Russia's interference in our elections and the cyber attacks on our
What
government
about
and
their
our
building of
business.
troops?
They did both of these things.
Yeah, and we know what
And
they
I
did. They
told them
spent
we would respond, and we
$40,000 on Facebook ads.
We can also
Man,
cooperate.
what
How
a
dare they?
how
It's our
wow
mutual
that really swayed the election.
We did it when
and
we
then
extended the
you know
New
what?
START
So he
treaty
put
on
sanction on him
nuclear
for that,
arms,
which is
and we're
you know
working to do
a
it on climate
non-issue.
change.
They definitely could have done
He
more.
understands. We
And then he
will
wants to put sanctions on him
respond.
for this American
On Iran and
bounties,
North
this
Korea.
bounties on American soldiers, which
Nuclear
was
programs
shown
that
last
present
week to be
serious threats to
completely
American
untrue.
security and the
It
security of
was
the
just this
world.
complete
We're
fabrication
gonna be working closely
that
with
Trump
our
was turning
allies
his back on the American
to
troops
address
while Russia was
threats
putting
posed by
bounties
both
on
of
their
these
heads.
countries.
It was just complete fake
through
news. It's
through
completely
diplomacy
fabricated.
as well as stern deterrence. And American leadership means ending the forever war in Afghanistan. We have
Why did you delay the troop pullout?
Yeah, you delayed it and then tried to take credit for it, which is hilarious.
We have, without hyperbole, the greatest fighting force in the history of the world. I'm the first president in 40 years and knows what it means to have a son serving in a war zone. Today, we have service members serving in the same war zone as their parents did. We have service members in Afghanistan who are not yet born on 9/11. The war in Afghanistan, as we remember the debates here, were never meant to be multi-generational undertakings of nation building. We went to Afghanistan to get the terrorists who attacked us on 9/11. And we said we would follow Osama bin Laden to the gates of hell to do it. If you've been in the upper Konar Valley, you've kind of seen the gates of hell. And we delivered justice to bin Laden. We degraded the terrorist threat of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan. And after 20 years of valor, and sacrifice, it's time to bring those troops home.
You'll already be home May 1st, for you.
Yeah, let's be fair. He's brought back quite a few of them. Just put him right
Even
back in
as we do, we'll
Leavenworth.
maintain over-the-horizon capacity to suppress
Good
future
point.
threats to the homeland. And make no mistake, in 20 years, terrorism has metastasized. The threat has evolved way beyond Afghanistan. Those of you in the intelligence committees, the foreign relations
Terrorists? Excuse me, good sir.
Community?
I think you mean some people who did something.
vigilant against the threats to the United States wherever they come from. Al-Qaeda and ISIS are in Yemen, Syria, Somalia, other places in Africa, in the Middle East, and beyond. And we won't ignore what our
Yeah, not very
intelligence
many good
agencies
things
have
come out of Somalia.
determined to be the most lethal terrorist threat to the homeland today. White supremacy is terrorism. We're not going to ignore that either.
That's not
My fellow Americans,
the biggest
look,
threat, or even on the
we
top
have to
10.
come together to heal the soul of this nation.
Yeah,
It was
Trump
nearly a
did say he
year
was going to
ago
bring troops
before
back,
her
but that was
father's
racist
funeral.
when he did it.
When I spoke with Gianna Floyd, George Floyd's young daughter.
Oh, Jesus.
She's a little tyke, so I was kneeling down to talk to her.
Did you touch her?
Did you smell
I
her
could
hair?
look her in the eye.
Sorry.
She looked at me, she said, my
Stop
dad
smelling
had
my hair."
changed the world.
Did you call her a roach?
Well, after the conviction of George Floyd's murderer, we can see how right she was if we have the courage to act as a Congress. We've all seen the knee of injustice on the neck of black Americans. Now's our opportunity to make some real progress.
Now you guys are defending.
The vast majority of
Black
men and
people
women
stabbing each
wearing a
other. You
uniform
have
and a
no
badge
moral-
serve our communities, and they serve them honorably. I know them. I know they want. I know they want to help meet this moment as well. My fellow Americans, we have to come together to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the people they serve, to root out systemic racism in our criminal justice system, and to enact police reform in George Floyd's name that passed the House already. I know Republicans have their own.
They need to make a bill that
in a very productive discussion
we are
with
no
Democrats in
longer
the Senate.
requisitioning
We need to work together to find a
uniforms
consensus.
for
But
generals
let's get
that
it
are
done next month.
that large,
first
that are
anniversary of
larger
George Floyd's
than
death.
somebody who's in shape. And if a general is unable to have his uniform and regulations, then I guess he'll have to retire.
I agree.
The country supports this reform, and Congress should act. Should act. We have a giant opportunity to bend the arc of the moral universe toward justice, real justice. And with the plans outlined tonight, we have a real chance to root out systemic racism that plagues America and American lives in other ways. A chance to deliver real equity, good jobs, good schools, affordable housing, clean air, clean water, being able to generate wealth and pass it down through generations because you have an access to purchase a house.
Yeah, if you
Real
can't pass on that wealth, how are we
in
going
the
to do a
lives of
death
more
tax?
Americans,
Come on,
black,
guys.
white, Latino, Asian Americans, Native Americans.
Think of the government.
Look, I also want to thank the United States Senate for voting 94-1 to pass the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act to protect Asian American and Pacific Islanders.
You guys have been spending hate decisions, and now you want to take the high road so you're the one stopping it? I don't believe you.
Who's attacking the Asians, Joe?
You can see on television the viciousness of the hate crimes we've seen over the past year, and for too long. I urge the House to do the same and send that legislation to my desk, which I will gladly, anxiously sign. I also hope Congress will get to my desk the Equality Act to protect LGBTQ Americans. For all transgender Americans watching at home, especially young people, you're so brave. I want you to know your president has your back. Another thing.
We already have a right that protects us. It's the Second Amendment.
27 years.
Oh, but he won't take it away.
Yeah.
It's an inconvenient.
27 years ago, I wrote it. It'll close the act that has to be authorized now. Will close the boyfriend loophole to keep guns out of the hands of abusers. The court order said this is an abuser. You can't own a gun. It's to close that loophole that
Red
exists.
flag laws. So
You know, it's estimated.
girlfriend who is mad at me can take my gun away.
50 women
Yeah.
are
think
shot
that's what it
and
was.
killed by an intimate partner every month in America. 50 a month. Let's pass it
What color are they?
and save some lives.
Really? Really? Was the gun legal? Where's the demographics on this?
I don't believe
And I
it. This is
need
what I
to-
said.
Yeah.
I need not tell anyone this, but gun violence has become an epidemic in America. The flag at the White House was still flying at half-mast for the 8 victims of the mass shooting in Georgia, when 10 more lives were taken in a mass shooting in Colorado. And in the week in between those two events, 250 other Americans were shot dead in the streets of America. 250.
And like
shot
100
dead.
of them were in Chicago.
I
Gang
know hard it is
violence.
to make
Yeah.
progress on this issue. In the
How many of them
90s,
were
we
legal
passed
gun owners?
universal
We already did the math
background
on
checks.
that.
A ban on
How many,
assault
how many
weapons,
stabbings were there,
high-capacity
Joe?
magazines that hold 100 rounds that can be fired off in seconds.
In
We beat the NRA.
defense of your life as well as
Mass shootings and gun violence decline. Check out the report over 10 years. But in the early 2000s, the law expired. We've seen daily bloodshed since. I'm not saying if the law continued, we wouldn't see bloodshed.
Good,
More
that'd
than
be a
So
lot.
why are
weeks
you bringing
going
it
to Rose
up?
Garden.
Like,
Surrounded by some of the bravest people I know, the survivors and families who lost loved ones to gun violence. I laid out several of the Department of Justice actions that are being taken to impact on this epidemic. One of them,
It's funny how much
is banning
shootings and deaths have
so-called
increased
ghost guns.
under Democrat cities
these are
and
homemade
allowing
guns built from a
BLM.
kit that gives directions how to finish the firearm. The parts have no serial numbers, so they show up at crime scenes and they can't be traced.
What's the stats on that? How many
The buyers
times do
of
they
these
show
ghost
up at
guns
crime scenes? How many times is this thing? We keep hearing about that they show up at crime scenes. Do they?
Anyone
What's the numbers on it?
from a criminal
How many
terrorist
times do we go to crime scenes where there
buy
is
this kit in
uh,
30 minutes,
3D printed guns at? I would love to know that.
but no more.
I would like to know as well.
I'll do everything in my power to protect the
Somebody's
American
not paying
people from
attention to
this
your
epidemic of gun violence, but it's time for Congress to act as well. Look,
Thank you for the follow, the wins. Oh, look at the cuck.
A wild
I don't want
cuck.
to become confrontational, but we need more Senate Republicans to join the overwhelming majority of Democratic colleagues and close the loopholes required in background check purchases of guns. We need a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And don't tell me it can't be done. We did it before and it worked.
We don't want to
Talk to
do.
most responsible gun owners and hunters. They'll tell you there's no possible justification for having 100 rounds in a weapon.
That's actually
Yeah, 'cause not for
specifically
hunting.
not true. That's specifically not true. I guarantee you that that's not true. Because I've seen plenty of hunters and gun experts who've said, yeah, I do need this many, and here's why.
But shouldn't be able to buy.
And it doesn't matter whether you need them or not. It matters whether or not you want them.
Support from the American people,
Right.
including many gun owners. The country supports reform this, and Congress should act.
If
This shouldn't be.
If the federal government could just start taking random
No
things
amendment to
and
the
doing a
Constitution is
needs test on them, like, well, you don't really need.
You don't need the right to speak.
Well,
right?
you don't
I mean,
need a 1,000
There are
square foot
certain
apartment.
guns,
You could do a 200 square foot.
not be
You don't
owned by
need a
Americans.
car. You don't need
people could not
a job
own
or
those
fancy
weapons.
clothes or an iPhone. Things.
We're not changing the
Right.
Constitution.
So
that just gives, if you don't need it, that gives the government the right to tell you you can't have it, right?
exactly. So you're catching up.
And here's what else we can do. Immigration has always been essential to America. Let's end our exhausting war over immigration. For more than 30 years, politicians have talked about immigration reform, and we've done nothing about it. It's time to
Thanks
fix
for the
it.
diamond.
On day one of my
It's a
presidency,
lemon for every
I
round.
kept my
Biden's
commitment to send a
imaginary bill.
comprehensive immigration bill to the United States Congress.
Thank you, Otter Lupus.
If you believe we need to secure the border, pass it because it has a lot of money for high-tech border security. If you believe in a pathway to citizenship, pass it. It's over 11 million
And you
undocumented
give Trump
folks, the
credit
vast
for
majority of
boosting
here.
up security at the
visas.
border that you're now continuing.
We can actually.
We've
if you actually
been
want to solve
using
problem,
the 11 million
sent a bill
illegals
to
since
take a
Joe
close
Biden.
look.
Oh my God, Ted Cruz is just dozing off
We
there.
have to also have to get
Um,
at the root problem.
Biden's
of
been
why
using the
people
11
are
million
fleeing,
since
particularly
like
to our
his
southern
first
border
term in the
from Guatemala,
Congress
Honduras, and El
50
Salvador.
years ago.
The violence, the corruption, the gangs, the political instability, hunger, hurricanes,
Like,
earthquakes.
yeah, if you want to do something
natural
about,
disasters.
about immigration,
When I
you
was
could have done
president,
it years ago.
when I was vice president, the president asked me to focus on providing help needed to address the root causes of migration. And it helped keep people in their own countries instead of being forced to leave. The plan was working, but the last administration decided it was not worth it.
Are you kidding me?
I'm restoring the program and asked Vice
That was
President Harris to
that
lead
was
our
Trump's
diplomatic
policy
efforts to take
to
care
That
stay
isn't-
in.
That is
I
was a
absolute
lot.
confidence to get the job done.
That was an absolute fucking.
Now look,
that is incredible.
if you don't like my plan, let's at least pass what we all agree on. Congress needs to pass legislation this year to finally secure protection for dreamers. The young people who only
Democrats
know
had that
America as their
chance
home.
dozens of times, and they never wanted to do it.
And permanent protection for immigrants who are here on temporary protective status who came from countries beset by man-made and natural-made violence and disaster.
There's a big
Well,
difference
the
between
pathway to
natural and
citizenship for
man-made
farm workers who
disasters.
put
Like, you
food on our
can't say those
table.
in the same breath. It's a
Look.
completely different thing.
Immigrants have done so much for America during this pandemic and throughout our history. The country supports immigration reform. we should act. Let's argue over it. Let's debate it. But let's act. And if we truly want to restore the soul of America, we need to protect the sacred right to vote. Most
Like
people.
with an ID, right?
Racist.
What ID maybe? Oh wait, you meant racist.
More people voted in the last presidential election than any time in American history. In the middle of the worst pandemic ever. It should be celebrated. Instead, it's being
if they're
attacked.
citizens.
Congress should pass H.R. 1 and the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and send it to my desk right away. The country supports it, and Congress should act now. Look, in conclusion, as we gather here tonight, the image of a violent mob assaulting this Capitol, desecrating our democracy, remain vivid in all our minds. Lives were put at risk, many of your
Well,
lives.
the other capitals
Lives
also
were
been attacked
lost.
recently.
Like,
Extraordinary
probably
courage
tonight.
was
I know they
summoned.
were 2 nights ago.
The
Like
insurrection
over,
was an
voter
existential
security
crisis, a test
laws and
of whether
anti-riot
our
laws.
democracy
Yeah.
could survive, and it did. But the struggle is far from over. The question of whether our democracy will long endure is both ancient and urgent. As old as our republic, still vital today. Can our democracy deliver on its promise?
The struggle for a
All of us,
democracy
great
is
equal
as
image of
old
God,
as the
have a chance to
republic.
lead lives of dignity, respect, and possibility.
Jesus
Can our
Christ,
democracy
Biden.
deliver the most pressing needs of our people? Can our democracy overcome the lies, anger, hate, and fears that have pulled us apart? America's adversaries, the autocrats of the world, are betting we can't. And I promise you they're betting we can't. They believe we're too full of anger and division and rage. They look at the images of the mob that assaulted the Capitol as proof that the sun is setting on American democracy. But they're wrong.
They didn't
You
look
know
at any
it,
of the
I
other
know.
rierts and mobs.
We have to prove them wrong.
You sure?
We have to
You
prove
sure,
democracy
Biden?
still works, that
Yes,
our government
that
still
was
works, and we
the
can
line.
deliver for our people.
We have examples like
In our
2 to
first 100 days
300 to
together,
1
We've acted to restore people's faith in
of
democracy and
left-wing
deliver.
burning down
vaccinated the nation.
cities.
We're creating
And
hundreds of thousands
one
of new
incident
jobs.
where
We're delivering real
the
results
supposed
to people. They
right
can see it, feel it,
got
in their
rowdy
own
and broke
lives.
some windows,
Opening
didn't
doors
kill
of
anybody.
opportunity, guaranteeing some more fairness and justice. That's the essence of
That was
America.
the line.
That's
Apparently.
democracy in action. Our Constitution opens with the words as
It's
straight
not,
as it
not a
sounds.
defense of
We
the
people.
Capitol, but it's just the
Well, it's time
constant
to remember that
pretending.
we, the people,
No,
that-
we don't need to
are the
defend the Capitol.
government.
We just need to have
You and
consistency
I.
in
Yeah.
how they are judging
Not some
things, right?
force.
the
in a
idea
distant
that that was
capital?
worse
Not
in
some
any
powerful
way
force that we have no
than
control
any of the
over.
stuff that
It's
went on over the
us.
summer.
Well,
It's
yeah,
we the
it's
people.
objectively not
another era,
worse. It's way better.
When our democracy was tested, Franklin Roosevelt reminded us, in America, we do our part.
No
we
one
all
on
do
Jan
our
6th,
part.
the rioters
all I'm
killed
asking.
anybody.
No,
That we
they did
do
not.
our
They lied
part,
about
all
them
of
killing
us.
people, but they never killed
Yeah.
anybody.
Do
The
that.
amount of damage, like
We will
there
meet
wasn't
the center
fireworks being
challenge of the
thrown,
age by
explosives
proving
being
that
used.
democracy is durable
No
and
buildings were
strong.
burnt down. They are not
Autocrats
comparable.
will not
Yeah,
win
and they
future.
attacked a federal
We
building.
will.
Not that that's
America
great or
will.
anything, but the
future
contrast
belongs
was
to America.
Democrat voters
So I stand
attacking
here tonight
American people,
before you
burning
in the
down
new
their
and vital
American
hour of life and
businesses.
democracy of our
If
nation.
I had to choose,
And I can say with
I
absolute
would definitely say I'd rather them
I
attack the
have
federal
never
building.
been more
But they,
or optimistic about America. Not because I'm president.
Yeah.
Because what's
Better than having
happening
your
with the
home burnt
American
down.
people. We've stared into the abyss of insurrection and autocracy, pandemic and pain, and we, the people, did not flinch. At the very moment our adversaries were certain we'd pull apart and fail, we came together, we united.
And
With light
prosecuted
and
every
hope, we
protester
sudmoned a new
at the-
strength,
at the
new
Capitol.
resolve to position us to win
at the
competition
expense
of
of going
21st
after
century.
pedos, like self-admittedly, the
On
FBI
our
admitted
way
that
to
they
a
have stopped
union,
pedo task
more
force.
perfect,
They've stopped the pedo
more
task force
prosperous,
because they are going
more
after the
just.
Capitol rioters still.
As one people,
Well, yeah, prior,
one
right?
nation,
Yeah.
and one America. Folks, as I told every world leader I've ever met with over the years, it's never, ever, ever been a good bet to bet against America, and it still isn't. We're the United States of America. There's not a single thing, nothing beyond our capacity We can do whatever we set our minds to if we do it together. So let's begin to get together. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you for your patience.
Well, we're in Leavenworth because we put this there.
That was President Joe Biden delivering his first session to a joint
President Joe.
session
That's
of his
former
first
Vice
speech to
President
appoint
Joe
a joint session of Congress. It lasted an hour and 5 minutes with
This
many
lady.
interruptions for applause. Historic in that he was.
So that was Biden's address to Congress. There are some whoppers in there. I think the best parts were. This has been a theme with Biden the last 100 days, and I'm thinking that's probably going to be a theme for his whole presidency, which is telling the truth about something that happened, but then telling a lie about who did that thing. So we had the vaccines, the jobs expansion, the drop in the COVID rates, the border policy, the Remain in Mexico policy, the adding new technologies at the border. All of that is true and is happening. It's not true that Biden had anything to do with it.
Right. Those are all things that Trump was doing and that Biden opposed. And now that he's in the seat, he actually, to try to claim he's achieving something of value, he's just dusting off Trump's policies and saying they're his. It's something which he had a story about not too long ago, and it remains true. He keeps doing it more and more. He's trying to take credit for what he did not do.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
And I don't. Do you think the Democrats actually buy it though? Like, come on, they have to know these are the same things they were criticizing Trump for.
No. So this is what the strategy is, right? So you've got more generalized Americans are going to be watching this, like your regular average idiot Democrat voter, not your radical Democrat voter, but your regular idiot, part of the probably the 40 to 50 million that threw him over the edge.
Low information voters.
Yes, they are watching us and going, see, I knew, my crazy Trump voter friend at work, he was saying, Joe Biden's going to do all this crazy stuff. But I watched Joe Biden's speech last night, and he said he was going to work on the border. He said he was going to do a jobs plan. He was saying, COVID vaccine works. And then they'll go in, because they've been hearing all this, last couple of months, their Trump friends been saying, like, Joe Biden's been saying the vaccine doesn't work. His administration is putting out information as if the vaccine doesn't work and giving you guidance that you still need to be masking up and still need to be social distancing and staying at home and not going to movie theaters if you're vaccinated. And they're going to say, well, no, I just watched a speech and Joe Biden said vaccines work. Or, your crazy Trump friend at work's been saying, like, oh, the border crossings, they're up to 200,000 a month now. It's never been this high. And they'll say, well, no, I just watched Joe Biden.
The first quarter of this year is more the entirety of last year.
Yeah, they'll say, no, I just watched Joe Biden last night. He said he's going to be tough on the border. He's going to have some kind of policy where they were going to keep the people in the country where they came from. That's new. And then their crazy Trump friend will be like, well, that was Trump's policy. He did the Remain in Mexico policy. And they'll say, no. But Trump didn't do the Remain in Mexico
Biden
policy.
says that Trump undid it.
Yeah, no. Trump was putting kids in cages. No, Biden's doing the Remain in Mexico policy. That's humane. So that's who this was for, Dyer. This was for your more run of the mill, your milquetoast idiot Democrat. This wasn't for the radical base. That's what the mainstream media and Twitter and all that stuff's for. Tonight was to again to kind of put that smooth veneer of calm onto the administration. And yeah, there's a lot of low information idiot Democrats out there who will say, oh yeah, Joe Biden's a moderate. Look, he was talking about the border and all that stuff.
The crazy part was that he said that Trump actually undid the Remain in Mexico policy.
Yeah.
That was Trump's policy.
Yes.
He enacted it.
Yes.
And then wow, that's insane. And if you weren't someone who actually follows the news or actually listen to anyone other than CNN, you wouldn't know that was a lie. Not everyone's going to listen to us.
Yeah. Quite a few people listen to us tonight, though. We appreciate you guys joining us. It was a fun night. Dyer didn't believe me that this was Biden's State of the Union. which he might have been
Only
right,
once.
but we
You've lied about it before. You can't blame me.
I was mistaken.
Nope. There's no such thing as mistakes. It's only
Yeah.
lies.
That doesn't look very social distance there. I don't know. I was told that
Yeah.
even with a mask, you still had to social distance. So
All right. Well, we can have more time to unpack this, but I think we jumped on each of the lies as they came pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like a miasma of lies. It was too much to grab onto every single one of them, or it was ones that were like, it's just kind of a Democrat trope at this point where they say it so often, everybody knows that it's a lie. It's almost not worth going over it point by point again. But yeah, it was I don't know, probably pretty well expected, but I did enjoy that we weren't only going to build back better. We were going to build back better.
Build back better.
Better.
I like how his new tax plan was going to give a tax credit to kids over 6 and also kids over 6.
Yes, that was
At
good.
2 different amounts. Are they added together? Is it actually 6,600?
I don't know. Yeah.
Firing minds. I want to know.
All right, guys. Well, you guys have a fantastic night. I don't
see you on
know if
Saturday.
we're going to be streaming anymore this week, so I'll be busy this
Oh yeah,
weekend.
you're right.
What's that?
I forgot that we weren't doing Saturday.
Yeah, I can do Sunday if you can, but we'll have to see.
I'll do Sunday.
Okay, so we'll plan on Sunday then.
All right. See you guys on Sunday.